Human health is regulated by both genetic and non-genetic factors. While extensive research has been conducted on the human genome, little is known about the exposome. This review focuses on charting the landscape of the environmental exposome and hopes to help people to better understand and promote the development of this new field. In 2005, cancer epidemiologist Christopher Weld first proposed exposome to encompass the totality of human environmental exposures from conception onwards, for drawing attention to the impact of non-genetic factors on health. In 2012, exposome was further divided into internal, specific external, and general external exposome, corresponding to biological response inside our body, environmental exposome, and the humanistic exposome. The environmental exposome can impact the biological response of organisms from gene expression to metabolic level, leading to adverse or beneficial effects on health. Biological exposures in the environment are diverse and highly dynamic, encompassing species from various kingdoms. There are millions of aerosols in the air that can carry pathogens, such as SARS-CoV-2, which is one of the transmission routes of the COVID-19 pandemic. Soil is one of the habitat of complex biological communities, which have a direct connection with food and the digestive system. Microorganisms can enter the process of water recycling, comprised by surface water, drinking water, and wastewater, and affect people's health. Chemical exposures can come from synthetic or natural processes. Indoor air exposures can come from cooking, burning, furniture, personal care products, etc. Some persistent pollutions in soil can be transferred and enriched along the food chain and may have short or long-term effects on human health. Under the influence of natural processes and human activities, aquatic systems are saturated with DOM, some of which have strong toxic effects on organisms. The physical exposures are obvious in our daily life, such as light, radiation, noise, temperature, and overwork. We included the physical exposome into the framework of exposome study in order to better discuss the association between environmental factors and exposures. The components of the exposome interact all the time. From our perspective, the influence of environmental factors on exposome can be viewed as interactions among physical, biological, and chemical exposome. These interactions are widely used in our daily production and life, affecting and changing our lifestyles. It is essential to understand these closely intertwined connections for the future construction of systematic exposome networks. In the end, we propose the outstanding challenges of exposome research. For example, we advocated systematically multi-level investigation of exposome, in which statistical analysis is combined with experimental verification. In this review, we summarized the representative biological and chemical exposures in air, soil, and water environments, and discussed their impacts on health, presenting a detailed landscape of the environmental exposome. Besides, we further discussed the interaction among biological, chemical, and physical exposome. In the end, we put forward a series of outstanding challenges of the exposome field.